In 2013, Ocelot broke down on live air after yet another loss to Fnatic. For nearly a decade, he'd been a side character in Europe's greatest League of Legends rivalry until he decided he'd had enough. So on February 24th, 2014, he founded G2. Over the next few years, he pried Fnatic's two brightest stars, Caps and Reckless, out of the black and orange jersey and turned them into weapons to topple his old nemesis. In the process, he didn't just dominate the LEC, he rewrote it. But unfortunately, what began as a rivalry transformed into obsession. This is the story of how Ocelot dismantled not only Fnatic, but also himself. Before G2 ever claimed Europe's throne, the crown already had an original owner, Fnatic. Ever since 2011, when they captured the first World Championship in League of Legends history, Fnatic had stacked prestige and trophies, and with household names like Xpeke, Soaz, Cyanide, and Reckless, they were Europe's biggest face on the international stage. Carlos Ocelot Rodriguez was headed down a different road. Equally gifted, yet far more polarizing, he played mid for SK Gaming, which was Fnatic's fiercest rival. Ocelot was also a great showman, and was one of the first League of Legends pros to realize the stage didn't end on the Rift. Through endless streams, slick merch, and pure charisma, he turned himself into a brand that was adored by some, but despised by others.
I won't even read the Twitch chat though. I'm pretty sure you guys are going crazy. Ocelot so bad! He beats so bad! Boo! Boo! Fucking Ocelot! He's the worst player in the world! This is why SK Gaming loses! Boo! Okay. Let's see, they're level 13, level 14, 14, they're doing Baron. It's gonna be 3, 2, 1. Okay guys, I go AFK. See you tomorrow.
Only one thing was missing: wins. Throughout his playing days, Ocelot kept running into the same brick wall. His duels with Xpeke and Fnatic became the most anticipated matchup in Europe, and it almost never ended well for him. The only tournament win Ocelot ever got on SK was ESL Major Series 8, a win so insignificant that Fnatic's page on the tournament doesn't even bother to include their roster. Every other tournament SK entered, Ocelot would end up coming short. On the flip side, Fnatic stacked up more and more impressive performances, including wins at big events like DreamHack 2012, All or Nothing tournaments, and even a runner-up finish at IPL 5, the most important international tournament the world had seen at that point. The breaking point came in 2013 at the IEM Katowice semifinals. Back in the early days of Pro League, international tournaments were much more frequent. The Intel Extreme Masters Global Challenge was a series of grueling tournaments where the top placers would receive invites to the IEM Season 7 World Championship, a prestigious tournament with the best teams in the world and a massive prize pool of $125,000, a big step up from the usual $1,000 first place prizes players were used to back then. The way the format worked was that 8 teams from across the world would compete in one of many locations and would play in a format that resembled the Worlds format fans would come to know and love. 2 groups of 4 teams each play a round robin, then the top 2 teams from each group play a best of 3 single elimination bracket stage. The winners would be granted an automatic ticket into the World Championship, but you could also qualify through championship points by placing well enough at multiple events. Fnatic had already participated in IEM Cologne and finished second to SKT in a close 3-game series, and were looking up to wrap up their necessary champion points in Katowice. They would be placed in Group B, the same group as SK. The entire round robin would be played in one day, and the matchup was looking to be intense. SK and Fnatic had both lost to the Korean representative Azubu Frost, and they had both beaten the EU team Absolute Legends. There was realistically no shot Absolute Legends would beat Azubu Frost, which meant that the qualification into the semifinals, and a large chunk of championship points, would hinge entirely on who won the best of one between SK and Fnatic. It was at this tournament where Ocelot would experience his most bitter defeat. The 2 teams went back and forth all game, and the situation was beginning to look dire for Fnatic. They needed a miracle to win the match, and that's exactly what happened as Xpeke pulled off one of the most legendary plays in the history of LoL esports.
We'll see how that one works out. The Super Minions are starting to spawn down there. It's going to be the third inhibitor in the game. Cyanide's going to get caught out. The orb just bounced left, right. He just avoided that. Ocelot finally finishes him out. Soaz tries to come around, but leaps out of it again. They do manage to pick up 1 kill. Can they get a second? Can they get a third? Strike towards it. Soaz on towards Hercubot. He's going to have his jump back available in a moment as soon as he catches back in there. Can he chase down Hercubot? Meanwhile, in the mid, we've also got Yellowstar pushing through. He's not going to chase this one through, and they're going to back off.
They're going to back off.
2 men down for Fnatic. Minions taken out. Are they going to go for the inhibitor turret, or are they going to go straight through? 26 seconds for Ocelot, 20 seconds for Candy Panda. They are going to be going for this one. It's Yellow Star hammering away. XPK is there as well. There is the first Nexus turret taken down. Second one's going to be focused. Can they finish off the Nexus? This is close stuff. 8 seconds for Candy Panda. They're going to focus in towards Yellow Star. Kevin going low. Big Mike kicking out. Silence coming in there as well. And Rayton will go down to Kevin. So that's going to be the focus here as well. Yellow Star has to back away. XPK taking damage all over the place. Harley Daly's going to land. Can they get him? Beckett somehow gets away. And Fnatic not quite able to finish the job.
But Candy Panda took down Soaz. That means there's going to be a 70-second spawn timer. There's super minions. A massive wave of them going towards the Nexus turret right now. Fnatic have to get back and deal with them. Meanwhile, you can see that SK Gaming are just keeping them delayed. They've got 2 inhibitors down, and they're just going to pile straight up towards those super minions in the base. You can see there's coming in there. Peke is desperately up towards the Nexus. Kevin is going to be able to go towards him. He's trying to do it, but meanwhile, they're in the base. Yellow Star's trying to defend them in the base. Peke is trying to take the Nexus down. Is anyone going to be able to deal with this one? Catches him with another axe. He's very low on that right now. They're pushing on the Nexus to it. Peke's back to it. I do not believe it. Peke's stuck in there. Catching it. Takes down the Nexus. But now he's going crazy. That game was amazing.
That was the best.
As the Nexus exploded, an astonished Ocelot watched, tears streaming down his face. In that moment, XPK became a legend, and Ocelot a meme. To add insult to injury, SK would end up qualifying for the IEM World Championship, but would be quickly shot down, going just 1-4 in groups. Both teams would then participate in the upcoming 2013 EU LCS circuit with the format that is still used today, and Fnatic would take home the win in both spring and summer, while Ocelot and SK would place 4th in spring and finish a disappointing 7th in summer to completely miss playoffs. It was at this point that Ocelot would leave SK and start his own organization, Gamers 2. G2 would have a disappointing 2014 and 2015 season, where they would fail to qualify for the EU LCS, in which Ocelot then would make the most impactful decision of his life by retiring as a player to make room for his replacement, Perks.
Perks has led his team to victory. The Nexus is the focus, and this is the G2 dynasty. Long live the kings of Europe, G2 Esports.
Over the next few years, Ocelot proved his real gift wasn't mechanical skill, it was his vision. Armed with an aggressive mindset and razor-sharp business instincts, he molded G2 into a powerhouse. The org thrived on constant banter on socials and bold visual identity, but most importantly, they won. They won a lot. Between 2016 and 2018, Perks would prove his worth as the mid lane replacement as G2 went on a tear, bagging 4 straight EU LCS titles. However, Ocelot's old rival Fnatic wasn't ready to give up the throne just yet. Their new core roster, led by young upcoming mid lane superstar Caps and the veteran Reckless, were also peaking. G2 fell to Fnatic in 2018 spring playoffs, and while they had an impressive semifinals performance at Worlds that year by defeating RNG in the greatest league upset of all time, they were still upstaged by Fnatic, who would go on to make grand finals against IG.
Reckless goes on a rampage, but Ning is still there, pressuring onto the turret with the rest of IG. Reckless is down, Broxa's away, IG are on the Nexus. The LPL has never won before, but that will change today. The Crownless are finally king.
We really sucked in the 2018 World Final on Fnatic because that week of practice leading up to the final, we were just all so tired and burned out.
This wasn't even a series that you look back at and say, man, what a close one.
We were in Korea for around 1.5 months, I think. I don't think I had a single day off. Like, we just had no downtime, constant League of Legends, constant practice, constant pressure and stress and all that. And if you're in that environment for too long without a break, that's really tough.
That's when Ocelot decided winning wasn't enough. It was time to break Fnatic from the inside out. In 2019, he pulled off his boldest play yet by taking away the heart and soul of the Fnatic roster. Caps, the prodigy mid laner who had carried them to a Worlds final, was now wearing G2 colors. This roster move hit the region like an earthquake, as G2 would go on to win 4 more straight LEC titles and solidifying their spot as the sole kings of EU. Ocelot's techniques were being proved in real time. The lineup of Caps, Perks, Wonder, Jankos, and Mickey wasn't just good, it was historic. On top of their 4 titles, they would also go on to win MSI 2019, place 2nd at Worlds 2019, and make it to the semifinals of Worlds 2020, only losing to the eventual champions in Damwon Gaming. Despite all the success though, Ocelot wasn't done. The last puzzle piece seemed to be within reach, a Worlds title. After the 2020 season, he completed the perfect heist. Reckless, one of the all-time great EU ADCs, and the face of Fnatic for nearly a decade, announced he was joining G2. It was an unthinkable move. Reckless had been the soul of Fnatic since 2012, its most loyal and iconic player. But he too was tired of losing, and G2 would swallow up the last piece needed to create the ultimate Western super team, Ocelot's soon-to-be greatest masterpiece. Unfortunately though, things never quite go as they seem. What it seemed like an invincible empire began to show cracks immediately. In 2021, G2 stumbled for the first time in years by placing 5th and missing out on their one and only Worlds appearance. The super team built to conquer the globe could not even clear Europe, and to say that Ocelot overreacted to the defeat would be a severe understatement. Reckless was cut from the team after a single split, which was to be expected, but that's when the story picked up a new theme, corporate greed. Even after being kicked from the roster, Reckless remained chained to G2. His contract carried a monster buyout of $1.5 million, enough to scare every LEC team away. Ocelot froze negotiations with any Tier 1 team and loaned Europe's most legendary ADC to a French Tier 2 team, Carmine Corp. It was the first time in more than a decade that Reckless wasn't playing at EU's Summit. And Reckless wasn't alone. Ocelot would also turn on Perkz, the player who was his original replacement, a player that Ocelot had called his son's favorite uncle, and that he loved dearly. Despite these false words, Perkz' case rang even louder than Reckless. After leaving G2 at the end of 2020, his plan was to join Fnatic. As we all know, it never happened. Reports said G2 itself blocked the move, inserting clauses into the contract that forbade any jump to their rival. Ocelot was blunt. Perkz could sign anywhere he wanted, except for the team he truly desired. Because of this contract jail, Perkz was forced to cross the Atlantic and join the North American team Cloud9. Meanwhile, Fnatic were sinking. Without Caps, Reckless, or Perkz, the org spent split after split searching for stability. Whenever Fnatic met G2, the favorite was obvious. The once competitive rivalry became a routine thrashing. It felt like the end of an era. The Fnatic that had once dazzled Europe was now fighting simply to survive. G2 had done it. They'd won the war. But Ocelot's cutthroat business habits would catch up with him, and he wouldn't be there to celebrate the victory. In September 2022, fresh off a Valorant win, Ocelot posted a celebratory video partying with friends. One of them was Andrew Tate, one of the internet's most divisive figures who is under investigation for human trafficking, notorious for misogynistic rants, and banned from multiple platforms. The internet blew up. G2's image, built over years of results and brash marketing, was suddenly thrust into the spotlight in a negative way. Sponsors spoke out, and fans demanded an apology. But Ocelot, ever the bold figure he'd spent a decade creating, chose the worst possible reply. "No one will tell me who I can party with." The line, posted on his personal feed, went global and his fate was sealed. G2 had no choice. Carlos was suspended on the spot, and days later his exit as CEO became official. He also surrendered his seat on the board of G2 Esports Holding GmbH, forfeiting influence over the very company he'd started from the ground up. In the following years without Carlos at the helm, G2 would slowly change. Most of the league roster was reshaped, and the public tone softened. Today, only Caps from the dominant 2019-2020 roster remains on the team. G2 is still the most dominant team in the LEC, but the Ocelot era was over. On the other side, Fnatic began its own rebuild. In 2023 summer, led by mid laner Humanoid and ADC Upset, they clawed back into the playoffs and would continue their tradition of qualifying for Worlds. A year later, with young talents Noah and Oscar Rinnan, they shocked everyone by beating G2 in the 2024 LEC Winter Final, snapping a title drought and lifting the fanbase's spirits. However, the road back still isn't the same. The truth is that even after Ocelot's fall, the old Fnatic never truly returned. All of the modern seasons are still the same, with Fnatic finishing below G2 and with titles being few and far between, if any at all. Ocelot hadn't merely beaten Fnatic in drafts or contract talks, he had shattered the team and along with it their aura of invincibility. Even after his own downfall, the damage was irreversible. Carlos Rodriguez started as Fnatic's rival, became their executioner, and ultimately would execute himself. Few figures have left a deeper mark on European League of Legends than Ocelot. He was the region's first rockstar mid laner, and he was its first LoL tycoon as well. For almost a decade, you couldn't tell Fnatic's story without writing him into every chapter. As a player, Ocelot endured humiliating loss after loss to Fnatic. After Xpec's 2013 backdoor, he could have walked away right then and there. Most players would have. Instead, he chose to come back on top. As a GM, Ocelot endured criticism, backlash, and controversy. After the Andrew Tate incident, he could have held his head down and apologized. Most GMs would have. But of course, instead, he chose the path less traveled. Today, Ocelot is out of league and out of the very company he built. But the shockwaves of his actions still echo. G2 remains a powerhouse, Fnatic remains perennial second place, and the LEC's history remains impacted by every season these two teams compete in. In the end, this story isn't only about how Ocelot dismantled Fnatic. It's about how one man's thirst for revenge shaped an entire region's identity, and how in League of Legends, as is in life, those who play fueled solely by spite always pay the price.